welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Roko and Michelle and our extremely special guest, Gina Temple. Gina's been with us a couple times before, healthcare leader, lots of years of experience. And this topic that we've launched around is around lessons in leadership. And so Gina was gracious enough to come back and have a chat around that aspect in leadership. So hopefully you listening will enjoy it. And so let's kick off with a quote. There are a number of them, I'm sure, that you're aware of. So first one is Michael Jordan, and it's a minute, so let me read it. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. So a lot of words, a lot of powerful stuff. Here's Michelle's version of that. There is no success without failure. So in that, it's the leadership lessons, and what we talked about with Gina and started thinking about this are those pivotal moments maybe when you look back in your career that you're going, wow, I didn't realize that meant that, that kind of thing if you look back. And the other thing is, if you were king or queen for the day and waved your magic wand, would you want a do-over in any kind of lesson that you had through leadership? I can think of a few of my own, but I would love to hear, Gina, what's on your mind, and then Roko obviously chime in and let's chat. So welcome, Gina.
Well, thank you both so much for having me back on the podcast today to talk about just really a fun topic. And I know when I look back over the last 5 years, through multiple, different organizations, I've had the pleasure of leading many folks, and under my leadership, I've actually had 8 people go on to promotions. So when I think about lessons learned, I tell folks that, I'm working for, it's all about how we learn from each other. It's about our relationships. But whenever I do hire on new talent, I tell folks all the time, you're going to observe, and there may be things that you're like, oh, wow, I see Gina do this. I want to replicate that or incorporate that into my day or week. There may be other things you're like, you know what, that works for her, but that's not going to work for me. Mm-hmm. So I think, life is about trial and error. So that's why I'm just really grateful to be with you guys today to talk about this topic in further detail.
Yeah, Gina, what would you tell your young self as you were just getting started as a leader?
This may sound a little elementary, but I would probably tell myself not to take myself so seriously and enjoy the ride along the way. Because I know whenever I first graduated from my master's program and really wanted to change the world of healthcare, I was just so darned serious. And I really think there's such value if you will slow down, enjoy the ride along the way, invest in yourself and invest in those around you. So really, I think I would have just paused and just enjoyed myself a little bit more.
I love that. And what comes to mind for me is it's like, because I think what happens is, and I think of myself too, is we're so focused on that next thing that we have to hit, that it is those moments along the way. It's like when you're talking to not take yourself so seriously, laughter. I mean, I look at all the time, I think about COVID, right? All the stuff that we went through COVID and all the stuff that was happening. If I didn't have those moments of laughter with the team, that we looked at stuff and just thought, okay, literally, we can't do anything about what's happening in front of us, right? And at every turn, you're like, wow, we're changing again. So, but I mean, laughter is that thing that I think just kept us moving forward. And we do forget to do that a lot of times. It's like laugh and joke around. It's like we were doing right before we hit record. That stuff matters. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. And it's contagious.
Yeah, it is. It is contagious. Yeah. And I love what you said about in the very beginning when you were talking about modeling. You're modeling those behaviors for those young leaders. It's such a big part of as you grow through your leadership to pass on those lessons learned through modeling, not just by telling others, but actually modeling the behaviors. So.
Well, and letting them know that aspect of it is, and I, in my head was like, make it your own, right? Personalize it. So it's a lot of times too, we aspire to do and be what other people are, right? Who we look up to, but that doesn't mean that you're little clones of whoever it is you're looking for. What is it that you can be true to yourself and still have the core essence of what those, you know, the values are, what the stuff that stands out for you that you want to emulate? Yeah.
And you know, when I was preparing for this, there was, of course, I love quotes too. And so I was reading this one. It's Peter Drucker, which I know a lot of us hold him in extremely high regard. But he said, whenever you see a successful business, someone once made a courageous decision. And, you know, along the way, I've seen people actually stand up and stand alone when they made different decisions. And I remember an extraordinary leader by the name of Eric Evans. He redesigned an organization in the past that I, again, was able to observe, where he said, we're going to focus on people, service, and quality. Once we nail those, then we will look at finance and growth. But he set that whole tone for, we are in the people business. We're going to make sure that our employees love working here. Our doctors want to practice medicine here. And above all else, our patients want to come here for care. And it really changed the culture under his leadership. But I think about what a risk he took, because, you know, in our industry, it is about the 5 pillars, but he really set the purpose, the tone, and set the example at the highest level in the organization. So I was just thinking about him a lot this morning as we were preparing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Go ahead, Roko.
I love that, because it's not only creating purpose, you know, changing that narrative to say, hey, everything isn't important. Let's focus on the vital few that's actually going to, you know, move us forward. But it's also leading with strategy, reading the terrain and knowing, hey, I can't expect movement in every aspect of what we do. We have to build our foundation and continue to grow in that way. So I love that. Just absolutely.
And the thing that stood out, so I wrote down people, service, quality. If you think about it, people are in the healthcare world, patients and staff, our frontline caregivers, right? And so when you, and service part of it, if you take care of your people, okay, and I mean your people that are delivering the service, they're going to take care of the other people, right? They're going to take care of each other. They're going to take care of the patients. They're going to take care of everyone. And when I think about quality, it's so funny. I've talked to leaders that there's this perception or misconception that quality costs more money. And the funny part, like you said, we'll worry about finance later. If you nail this stuff, right? You provide excellent service, people care, they're in it because it's their business. The quality's right. You're not going to have the defects. You're going to save yourself money. You're going to make more money. And I love that foundation of it, because it's like, don't worry about all this other stuff. Worry about this stuff, and the other stuff will happen.
Yeah. We saw that as well in, again, years ago in Pensacola, Florida. I remember whenever a young Quinn Studer was CEO, he was CEO at Baptist Hospital. And I remember him getting up in front of us. I was actually a floor nurse. I was a trauma nurse at the time. And he got up in front of the whole group and he said, you know, we don't have the money to outmarket our competitors. He said, but we have the right people here in this room to make a difference. And he said, so instead of putting billboards up, he goes, we're going to have a campaign based on word of mouth advertisement. And by Lordy, we did it. I mean, you know, going to the top decile and Press Ganey satisfaction, the quality indicators hit, and the rest was history, you know, later becoming a federal Baldrige award-winning hospital. But again, it takes those brave leaders who will stand up and stand out, and in a way that gets folks that really want to follow them. And so I've just, again, been very blessed, I feel like, to be at the right place at the right time, and always hoping that I've picked up some of those nuggets, because I do believe that when you are authentic it just shines through. And again, I've had the privilege of being able to watch leaders like that who, they walk the talk, and we wanted to be part of it.
Yeah. It's one of those tenets around leading self, right? If you think about all those leaders that you just mentioned, they had to lead themselves first. And I think that goes to the authenticity, but it also goes to believing in their vision, right? Having some vision of where you could take the organization, and knowing what all the constraints that you have, whether it's, you don't have the money or the deep pockets to pay for marketing and things like that. So what could you do? And leading from that place, that's amazing.
It's interesting, but Jeff Henderson wrote the book, I think, What Are You For? And it was around what you described, Gina, with Quint Studer, is rallying people around purpose, right? And so when you have people in the room and you say, we're not this, but we are this, it's like, we have the potential, we have the path forward, we have all this stuff. And when people can get behind that and they can see themselves in what it is and believe in it, it's a force you can't stop. And so what came to mind for me, the question about just the leaders that you were mentioning, like Roko was talking about, is what do you bring forward in your own leadership journey, right? It's like, so I got a piece of Quint, I got a piece of Eric, I got a, and so you go from a trauma nurse. What did that do to you in that moment when you're in this? And looking back, Quint Studer wasn't Quint Studer that we know today. He was Quint Studer, a CEO of a hospital. What impact did that have on you, your journey?
So I was looking through some of the different steps in my journey, and the first step, I won't spend a lot of time on it, but it was really a calling to be a nurse or to be a clinician at the bedside. And so when I looked back again, I was just taking some different notes for our discussion, but really the objective there was to care for my community. It, again, very pure, very simple. And the result of that was, I was able to get purposeful work that really helped to just connect me back to my community. The second big step for me is exactly what you said, Michelle. It was a decision to transition away from the bedside into leadership. And I asked myself, why did I want to do that? And really it was because watching Quint Studer and his leadership team, because of course, Quint could not have done it alone. He had a very strong leadership team. And I would see in town halls, they would include us, and they really believed in top-down, bottom-up approach to problem solving. And so I had a voice, and I knew how many decubitus we had in the hospital every month when we would come together, or every quarter, depending on what the town hall cadence was. I was asked to step up and open 2 different centers under Quint's leadership as a frontline staff member, and they saw more in me than I saw in myself. And so as a leader, just always be looking for those opportunities to, again, raise someone up, to let them rise to their level of true potential. And so that's really what happened there with me, is just seeing what good leadership could do. I wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to learn more about it. That's why I went back to school, really focused on getting my master's in public administration, and really focused a lot on public policy and things like that. Why were we doing what we were doing in healthcare? It wasn't just because we wanted to. A lot of times, Balanced Budget Act and things like that were coming down the pipe. So that influenced me. And then I would say, when I look at the leaders like Quint and folks like that, and where I am in my career today, I didn't just get here. One big moment for me was, and if Jill Ragsdale is watching, Jill Ragsdale, so she was my boss when I worked for Sutter Health at one point, and Jill was an absolutely amazing boss, so extraordinarily bright. She went on maternity leave, and I remember she brought all of us, her direct reports, together, and she said, while I am out, I want you to know, I trust you. I know you're going to make wonderful decisions, and when I come back, I'm going to uphold every one of your decisions. And I'll tell you, when she left, I mean, from a leadership perspective, I felt so incredibly alone, but I started making decisions by myself. And when she came back and, we reflected on the decisions, my leadership confidence grew so much during that time. And Jill was true to her word. When she came back, she celebrated all of our decisions around that table and celebrated us as leaders. And that was a pivotal time in my career that my leader, again, trusted me and backed me. And I grew immensely.
I have chills.
I know, right?
We need to call Jill out and tag her when we post this. I think it's important because I think about when you were talking, the stuff I wrote down is that, like Quint, or the opportunity is they saw more in me than I saw in myself. And when I think about a young Gina Temple or Roko Miles or Michelle Smith, back in the day, you don't know what you don't know. And so you literally are sitting back in the levels between where you were at as a frontline trauma nurse with potential and everything else. You don't know what the path is. You have no idea what the opportunities are. And I think that's so powerful for leaders to look and say, this person may not have a title or direct reports, but look at that frickin' potential. And how can I open a door for them to be able to step through and have the opportunity to experience something else? Yeah. And Jill did that with you guys. It's like, I trust you, it's going to be okay. And you grow exponentially when you're, you learn by trial or fire or whatever stepping into. And one more thing it brought me to, one of my clients I was recently coaching, she reflected on a similar thing. She went on a 3-week vacation with one of the employees, super new, super nervous, wasn't sure. The growth that employee's had in the 2 weeks since she came back from that 3 weeks, pale. I mean, it's crazy compared to what she was doing before. I mean, exponential. And there's so much power in all that stuff that you just described. Give people the opportunity, pull back, and let them navigate through, trust and support, and uphold what was done. I freaking love it.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing of encouraging growth, be that inspiration, but then it also circles back to the original, quote that you gave with Michael Jordan, right? If we don't offer those opportunities for growth, that leader won't have an opportunity to fail and learn from it. And so that's how you build your confidence. That's how you build your competence. So when we talk about building confidence, competent, leaders, that is a demonstration of it, giving them an opportunity to test the waters and to be that frontline person standing up and making the decisions, but then knowing you have the support from your one up afterwards to then trust you and talk about it with you.
I know another transition in my career, as well as, going from floor nurse to nurse manager into a regional director position. And then, I've served as a COO, CEO, different positions. But what I also want to tell folks out there is, anytime that you have an opportunity and you really are hungry to take on more, just do it. And the reason I say that is because, and my husband, again, I know I talk about him a lot during our podcast, but with his military career and leadership background, I remember one of my first big opportunities, and he said, why are you not just saying yes? Or why aren't you putting your hat in the ring for this next position? And it was like, I don't know if I can do it. You start asking those kind of questions, or even maybe some self-doubt going in there. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I learned along the way is, if you wait until you're ready for that promotion, you will never move. Because, but if you've got the aptitude, the interest, the subject is of interest to you, or it's purposeful work, and that you're going to put in the hours it takes to learn it and to be an effective leader in that space, go for it. Do not sit back and don't think that someone else is going to do a better job than you. Have faith in yourself. And I just can't say how much I've just learned, again, through every position, different transitions with my husband's military career or with my career. You've got to have faith in yourself.
Yeah. It's interesting. I Tansy Decor, who's a CNO right now at another organization. She and I have known each other for 10 years. She's on the podcast and helps me out with it too. But I was talking to her about that, and it's like there's ready, right? And then there's ready. So part of it is you don't need to be ready to the point that you step in and you know everything in the landscape before you step in. The ready that you need to be is a foundation of where you're at, to where the role that you're currently in, you're like right there. You're high performer, top of the top, whatever it is, but you're not totally high performer, top of the top for the next thing. And that's what you want. You want to be able to step in and challenge yourself and continue to learn and grow. Otherwise, you'd probably be bored in a matter of months. Be like, okay, where's the next thing? Because I already know how to do this, But I think that's where it is if you're not 100% confident, that is the thing, to your point, to go for, because that's where you're going to learn and grow.
Yeah, that's the exciting part.
Yeah. So an element of fear is okay, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I always tell folks to, get comfortable being uncomfortable, because as a leader, a continuous learner, I mean, that's what it's about, putting yourself in those situations where it's going to bring out the best in you, and you're going to bring out the best in others as well. That also reminded me of, just along the way, excuse me.
We get frogs in our throat all the time.
Well,
they do pass.
I would say one of the things too that, for leaders out there watching, or folks who are wanting to continue to develop their career, we talked about, don't lose yourself in the way. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. We talked about that on other podcasts, but I would say, as I looked back, I thought about the wonderful friendships that I've made. And I mean, Michelle and Roko, I mean, both of you, I reach out to you guys, and it's not just about asking for advice. It's truly, to check in, see how you guys are doing, your families are doing, your careers are doing. But I thought about some of the wonderful teams that I've been on. I was serving on a team, and I know they wouldn't mind me sharing their names, but I was working with, let's see, it was Dina Perez-Graham, and I was working with Kendall Turton, and they were both on the senior leadership team, and I was working as a COO. But I can remember we would go into those meetings, and we all had our data points. We were all very, very prepared. And I know there may be some challenges, because our lanes would intersect here and there. But I remember at the end of those meetings, we would stop, and one of the three of us would say, "All right, ladies, let's go to lunch." And we would all go off together. And today we still are very, very close. And so I would also say that whenever you are working with teams, make sure that you're leaning on each other, and don't take it for granted for 1 minute, those beautiful relationships that you have today, and just think about how they're going to be nurtured and just blossom in the future. But again, folks like you and Dina and Kendall, Barbara Nelson, who I worked with at Sutter Health as well. These are folks that, they're my call a friend lines that I'll call and just, again, bounce ideas off of. But more importantly, they are friendships that I will cherish forever.
It's so funny because I think about Roko in that capacity, and other people that, I've connected with. Christopher Henry's another one that we'll just chat and bounce things off of. He's over at Bed Bath & Beyond now. But I think about that kind of stuff. It's like, and I think we mentioned it before, who's on your personal board? Who are those people that the beauty of it is you don't have to connect with them and catch them up on all the history of stuff going on. They already know. So when you get on the phone, it's like, boom, you're off and running of wherever it is. And they have a very trusted, valued perspective. And a lot of times what happens is, as leaders, you're up against stuff that maybe you haven't navigated before, or maybe it's more personal. You need another perspective of someone who's not in the mix the way you're in the mix. And that's invaluable. And so a lot of it, and Gina, the further you get up the food chain, the less people that are in that category for you that you can just get real with. You know, I've got leaders that they go, okay, I'm going to go below the line for a minute. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then they just come right back up again, because at the beginning and middle of the day, we're frickin' humans. And that's who you need, is that human connection, to be real with people, to go, okay, fine. You know, in a leadership position, there needs to be hope and everything for the people in your charge. But yeah, it's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff. Yeah.
So whenever you were talking, I recently was watching a podcast with, well, not doctor, it's not doctor, sorry, but Mr. Simon Sinek. I know a lot
I
of
love Simon Sinek.
Yes.
like to listen to him, but he was talking about when you get in the mud, and everyone watching, you will get in the mud.
Yeah.
It happens to all of us. But he talked about a true friend, and he said, it's instinct whenever a friend, they want to, or well, maybe you want them to pull you out of the mud, or the friend that you want them to pull you out of the mud. But he said the best thing that a friend can do is get in the mud with you. Sit there and just listen. And again, be that sounding board. You know, we talked about that in the past, just the strength of listening and how it does continue to foster beautiful friendships and things like that. But he said a true friend, they will get in the mud with you. And, you know, we've all got different friends who have done that for us. And I know Meg Blankenship is, I don't know if that name sounds familiar to you guys, but, you know, worked for Sutter Health for
We know Meg.
Years.
leader. But, you know, she's one of those friends that, again, day or night, you know, I can call her and we waller together in the mud.
Are you mud buddies?
We are. But yeah, you have to have those types of folks that you can just pick up the phone and call. And I know, Roko, thank you as well. I know that you've been there for me multiple times in my career whenever I needed a sounding board, when I worked at Sutter and outside of Sutter.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, you know, I love it because the mud can be really, really dirty, and they can help you see how dirty it is, you know, but they can also help you see, you know, hey, we can actually move through this mud, you know, it's not quicksand. We can actually navigate through. So they help you see those perspectives, but it's having that person that will be comfortable calling out things that they see in you and help upload that genius, if you will, that's within you, but maybe, you know, hidden at the moment. And so I love that analogy. So
it's so funny. I wrote down mud buddy. So we all need to get a mud buddy.
Mud buddy.
Oh my God. I think about times like that. It's like, and a lot of times, if we go on the mud analogy, you may not even realize you're in the mud. You know, and so a friend can help you realize that you're in the mud.
You're right.
It's just interesting. My brain went a number of different ways with that one, because part of it is, and I think about conversations you and I have had, Roko, around different scenarios, that moment when, and Tanti's done that, a number of people have, that moment when my own personal self, I go from being just locked up. I don't know any other way to explain it, right? Just not being able to move forward, conflicted, everything else, to where some point in that conversation, I unlock. And that's what the mud buddy does, right? It's like, you know, you just kind of unlock and you're like, okay, now I see my path forward. But it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I know. So another quote that I was looking at here, Joyce Meyer says, "Don't mourn over your bad decisions, just start overcoming them with good ones." And so again, a good friend will tell you that as well. It's, you know, it's not the end of the world. Everyone is going to have a misstep. It's part of life. It's part of leadership. And to what you were saying earlier, Michelle, the shame of it is if you don't learn from it, and if you don't teach those others around you the benefit of your learning, that that's whenever I think it's really a shame.
I've got another one. You just reminded me, Henry Ford, the only real mistake is the one from which we learn nothing. And I have to agree with you. What you were just talking about is the whole idea that, don't think that, let me back up a minute. What happens a lot of times as people looking on and admiring leaders, right, is we think that the view that we have and the perspective that we have is the totality of that leadership journey. And it's not. And so I think the stuff that you're talking about is so important to realize, that you may have a perspective through rose-colored glasses, whatever that may be, that you're viewing this leader, but there are mistakes along the way. There are learnings along the way in every frickin' leadership journey. And be okay with being transparent and vulnerable about what that stuff is. Own it, whatever it may be, if it went sideways. And if it didn't go sideways and it was amazing, then you credit, to your point, you're not on an island by yourself. This is a team sport. It's powerful stuff. And I think it's important for people to realize, you know, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. The other one is don't cry over spilled milk. That's what came to mind when you said the Joyce Myers. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah, my mind actually went towards agility and adaptiveness, right? So failure, if you hold on to the failure, they become weights and they hold you back from growing. But if you reflect on the failure and think about those lessons learned and then move forward, let them go and move forward, it allows you to be agile and adaptive. So you're not weighted down by those failures. They actually propel you forward. And so that's where my mind went when you were talking about, you know, learning from your failures.
I love it. They don't define you.
No,
they don't define you, but they do shape you.
They do.
I have another quote. Oh my God, I need to start writing this stuff down. Failures don't define you, they shape you.
Oh, I love it. Well, and Michelle, another thing that you were talking about is just, you know, what would I have changed along the way? You know, we had talked about that, and it's really a good segue into that. And really, I wrote down just 3 different things, kind of big buckets. But the first one was, anytime that a leader has an opportunity to take on an executive coach, they need to do that. And it doesn't matter how far up you are in your career. Actually, probably even you need it more the further up you go, because it gets lonelier and lonelier at the top. So I would say, make sure that if your company is not offering that, make sure that you're looking outside of your company, because I think it's so valuable. On a previous podcast, I shared a learning that I had with an executive coach was, I had an opportunity to become a better listener. I had no idea that that I had an opportunity there, but we went through a print assessment, and I saw, you know, what I look like during my best self. I saw some of my shadow behaviors, some I was aware of, and then again, like the listening, I had complete blinders on because I was listening to solve the problem and not to really engage in the conversation. So again, I cannot say that enough. The next thing I would say is, just know that it does not matter how much you communicate, there's always going to be an opportunity for improved communication. However, that does not mean that we should ever stop from trying. And I know, even as I served as a federal Baldrige examiner, that's something that they drilled in us. You know, you have to do multimodal types of communication. And depending on the stakeholder, it may look different. And you may have to do it day 1, 2, 3, repeat week 2, week 3, week 4. But I would say, make sure that you are partnering very closely with your senior leadership team, developing with your communications expert those communication plans and strategies. And I think that, again, you have to look for top-down, bottom-up venues. You have to look for sources of feedback in those loops, video vignettes, all those different types of things. It's extraordinarily important. And then the third thing I thought about, that, you know, as I looked back and what would I change, again, take time along the way. And I said that as we opened as well, and I mean that sincerely. How do you balance and still optimize your career while not losing yourself, losing your family, maybe losing your love for nature, or whatever that pastime is that brings you joy? And I remember, like it was yesterday, sitting down with Barbara Nelson, and Barbara Nelson just looking at me eye to eye and saying, Gina, remember, this is not who we are. It is what we do. And that's whatever. I was working as a chief nurse officer. And I mean, I'll like grab myself, look in the mirror and try to, hone in on my inner Barbara Nelson. Because I think those are beautiful words that, just don't lose yourself. You can love your job. You can love what you do every day and all the changes that you're making that are positive, but just don't lose yourself.
I love that. Well, I'm gonna, and that could be one of these three things, or you said it. I'm gonna say I appreciate your time. I've got freaking 3 pages of notes. What? This is my learning time. But I would love if there's something that stands out for you that you want people to walk away with. What would that be, Gina, on lessons in leadership?
I think it goes back to, again, just make sure that you're being true to yourself, and that the things that you are doing at work are also bringing you personal joy. And I would like to end my piece of it is just something that someone asked me in the last 2 years, and it said, most of us think about our job in terms of what am I getting from my job? Instead, what if you asked yourself daily, what am I becoming as a result of this job?
That's kind of scary.
It can be scary or happy.
Yeah. Well, I think about
it's all
it.
in what you invest in. It's all in what you invest in, where you spend your energy and time. And it's a good check, right?
I think so.
To say, is this who I want to become?
Exactly. Yeah. Is it shaping me in the wrong way or the best of ways?
Yeah.
Just make changes based on that.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Agree. That's a powerful check-in. Roko.
Well, how can you, I mean, to me, that was the nugget. That was the nugget. But I think, again, just like you, Michelle, I have several pages that I'm looking at of notes from Gina. Lead self, be that authentic person, never give up, be resilient, lead with purpose, thinking of all those leaders that shaped you. They all had some bigger purpose and change the narrative around their situation. Lead with strategy, leverage those unexpected things and read the terrain, if you will. Encourage growth. I mean, that was huge. Encourage growth, give people the opportunity to see something more in themselves and trust them and build their confidence and competence. So those are the big ones for me. That
was way more than 2.
I know. I had to be chatty. I mean, come on.
I know.
There's so many nuggets.
What it comes, there's a few things that come to mind, but part of it is I think it distills down to this thing of, if you think you can't, or if it scares you, the thought of the next advancement, promotion, whatever it is, then that's the thing. That's the thing to go do, right? And I go back to the saying from the emotional intelligence workshop I went through decades ago: face your fears and do it anyway.
That's right. Because
that's where and I think part of it is, it freaking matters. If it scares you that much, this is the thing. So I just thank you for this time again, the 3 pages of notes, all of it, and so appreciate you, and Roko, always appreciate time in the room with you. Until next time, this is Leadership Soundbites with Roko Michelle and Gina Temple in Lessons in Leadership. Have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.